What's up, guys? Today I have a little situation with my hitch falling off. I had this worked on by a mechanic. I like the mechanic, but his idiot worker did a crappy job on the entire truck, and this thing is now falling apart because of poor design. So I'll show you what I got. So this hitch right here is tilting this way. It's tilting away from the truck, and if you look, you can see here that weld is coming out there. This whole part right here is just crumpling and falling apart because this steel is not strong enough to have a hitch. I don't know how the hitch was hung off of that before, but obviously it was reinforced with quite a bit of weld, and right now I have a situation where this hitch is unusable. It's got a ton of slop in it too. Probably needs to be replaced, but I'm gonna cut it off and see where I can go with it. So my goal has now become to complete this job without having to go buy steel at the steel yard. I think I have a couple pieces of steel out there that might be long enough and sort of a structural piece that I could cobble together. This was never a hitch. This step system was a step system only. Well, it was a hitch, but it was attached to both the frame rails of the truck and the dump. And obviously you couldn't dump like that. So when I had the dump put on, they cut off the steel that was bracing these steps to the frame rails. And I've been towing off of the bed, which is a normal thing to be done, and it seemed to handle fine as far as the overall weight of the tongue on the back end of the bed. But this step was not a structural part to start with, and so now I have to figure out if I can make it into a structural part. Less than 30 and a half. Oh yeah, by the way, a chop saw would be nice right now, but when I went to go buy, I was like, I either am going to buy this or a chop saw, and this is the same price or more as a chop saw. This is a premium tool, so I paid a little extra for it. And the Metabo is a good, smooth running machine. It's powerful. It shuts off my breaker because the power they ran into this garage was just for lights. They were only meaning to run high-powered things off of the welding circuit, which is separate. So I have to rewire the garage, and so sometimes this thing cuts off the breaker and I have to go flip it, but it's within the amperage, but when you overload the unit, it shuts off the breaker. So, but I like this thing a lot, and it's more versatile than a chop saw. You just have to be careful because it's so dangerous. I knew these pieces of steel were going to come in handy later. I welded a bunch of stuff, tabs on them and stuff to reinforce them when they were the stake sides on my F Super Duty. That's this same truck, but I couldn't throw them away because I knew they're structural, and I paid full price for this steel when I got it, so I wanted to save it as scrap in case I needed it. And now I'm glad I did, because I'm going to basically turn this into the original dimension on this edge, and then I'll make a box tube out of them, and they'll be super strong. In case you guys are thinking, you need a plasma cutter. Yeah, I need a plasma cutter, but like I said, the power supply to this area is not sufficient to run more than one thing off the welding circuit at a time. So you can run the welder, or you can run an air compressor if it plugs into that. My air compressor goes into the regular power that I run the grinders off of. So if that runs, sometimes it shuts off the breaker just because. But a plasma cutter would be awesome. But this is my poor man's plasma cutter, and it's pretty versatile, and it's pretty good for the price. By comparison, what you could pay for a plasma cutter would be in the multiplied thousands, and I only do this some of the time. So it's basically as a backup for the fact that I can't just go to a mechanic and get my truck worked on, and I have to be in business. So I'll fix this in one day. If I drop the truck off at the welding mechanic, he'd probably have my truck for 2-3 weeks. He had it all winter. He had it for like a month at a time. It said it's a one-day job. Drop it off Friday. A month later, still not done. And that's the same everywhere. All mechanics are busy. So it's better to just do this myself, the poor man's way.
Bueno. Entonces, vamos a poner mucho weld ahorita.
For those of you who must see what my weld looks like, it's not a pretty weld, but all I need is for these two to stick together. Okay, so I got my my new receiver tube. This is 6-inch. There was a 12-inch, but I didn't want to brace the back end, and that would be the whole purpose for getting the brace to the 12-inch to start with. Would be the fact of using a brace on that tail end of it. So I'm just going to weld this on, and hopefully that will be sufficient. lot of passes along here and along here. I probably did like 8 or 10 maybe. And I did underneath this edge here, I did like 2 or 3. And the same on that back underneath there, I did 1 or 2, I think. And then I just put this bar here just to add some of the load bearing to this. So that way if it's relying on those welds at the ends and they're not good enough, it'll assist a little bit before it comes apart. Pretty loose, but that's the right size, so that's what we're going for. Alright, so that's it. That's how I did it. And you know, this mechanic that did this job for me, I like the guy personally. I've spent a lot of time talking with him at his shop and everything, but he had his worker do the job on my truck instead of, I don't know if the worker was just lazy or lackadaisical or what. Whatever the deal was with the worker that did this hitch, they just did kind of a poor job. They did the shortcuts and they did some work. I mean, they cut a piece of steel, they welded the hitch back on, but they didn't think about the structural issues. And I'm actually thinking that partly the hitch was breaking off because when we were dumping it, we had to slam the truck into the pile to make all the chips come out, because when they reattached the scissor for the dump, they attached it wrong and it's not dumping high enough, and so we had to ram the pile to dump. It would dump out a little bit, but you couldn't get you had to ram it like 10 times, and I think I was leaving the hitch on there, and that hitch was putting torque on it every time we would hit it. But when you're driving down the road, that tongue weight is quite high on that chipper. That's probably at least 300, 400, 500 pounds, and it's bouncing like crazy in that pintle hitch. So you know, we'll just give it a go and see if this works out. It should be a lot stronger, and all I'll do is just keep checking the welds periodically when I'm driving it to make sure that if it is failing, that I have a chance to fix it before it totally fails on the road. Oh, and I still need loops, chain loops. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about this Wilton bullet vise. So basically, I had a vise that appeared in a previous video. It was kind of a neat little, it might have been an Irwin or something, one of those brands that comes from Home Depot, and it had tilt functionality and it had little jaws for round objects and stuff, and it was pretty neat. I had a friend who wanted it, and or he wanted to get one like it, but he couldn't find one, and they weren't in the stores, and it was hard to find. I don't know why, and but it had the ability to tilt in multiple different directions. It was pretty handy, and it was kind of a good, well-known brand. So I gave him my vise because I was like, well, he's never going to find one, and I need a heavier vise anyway for some of the stuff that I'm doing. And I thought for sure I'd be able to find a good US-made vise somewhere, but there wasn't one. I looked everywhere, and finally I discovered these Wilton vises, which are incredibly expensive. I think this thing was over $600 or $700. It was astronomical. I couldn't believe how much it cost. And I paid the premium for it because, well, I would have bought a used one, but nobody sells vises. You know, they're so desirable. Most of what you see are the ones that are basically ruined. And really, people abuse these things and mistreat them, and they do get ruined. So this is the Tradesman, which I don't know if they call it a bullet vise, but I'm pretty sure this shape right here, where it looks like a battleship. You know, it looks like a bullet. And that's a special seal design that they use that's supposed to be more long-lasting and cleaner than your conventional seals setup. So this is actually sold as a Snap-on item. I am 100% sure that is true, because I was at a mechanic shop recently, and I looked over and I saw their Snap-on vise, and it was a larger version of this, but it was identical. The only difference was it was red instead of having a blue Wilton on the side. And I said, that's a Wilton vise rebranded Snap-on. I could tell just by looking at it. You can compare and see that, you know, the one that they're selling is made in the USA. is probably this exact vise. But so that lets you know something about the quality level of it. Let me show you around the thing. So I don't really know that there's a whole lot to show you here, but these handles here, you know, you can rotate this to your heart's content. It's nice to have around. This handle, when you put muscle on this handle, it really goes. When you push this, instead of banging and ringing, it hits soft because it's got these rubber things on it. Them are nice. They don't have a lot to do with the functionality of it, except for that it makes it a real smooth transition instead of feeling like you're slamming stuff around. I've just bolted this to the table, but I would note that the bolt pattern, I don't know if you can tell, but these front bolts here are farther apart from each other than these back bolts here. And I'm not totally sure why that is, but you can see this foot is in the corner here, and that one is in a little bit. And this thing is oriented perfectly square to the table. But you can see it's got this back cap, and I'm not sure about the design on this thing. I really have never taken it apart, although the other day I did have it unscrewed all the way by mistake, and it still wouldn't come apart. And my worker was having trouble getting it to go back in, but we got it to go back right back in after just a second. But it's cool because it's got these removable jaws. So these jaws can be replaced, which is awesome. You can see it's got the bolts that hold them in, so you could put brass jaws in there if you want. These have nice knurling on them. And you can look down inside here and see it's got a holder for a round object. So you would you know, put it in like a piece of pipe or something in from underneath like that. There, so you set up the jaw where it's holding your round object right there. A small one there, bigger one there, flat there, you know. So it's kind of nice. But this is a reliable vise. Best I know, you're not going to find a made in the USA vise other than this one right here. I have looked and looked and looked and looked. And anything that claims to be made in the USA brings you back here to this. So take it for what it's worth. It's very hard to find them anymore, and they're unbelievably expensive. But I got this at a great hardware store in my local area, Nicholson's Hardware in Rockford. They're awesome. I love those guys. They know what they're talking about, and they stock high-quality tools. So I definitely recommend this vise. I know I probably sound like a giant fanboy about this vise, but it actually is a very, very nice tool to have. And there's an element of pride to it that I know I have a thing that I can count on to be at the highest level of manufacturing available. So I recommend it for you. I recommend it for me. If you can swing it, obviously it's a lot of money to spend. It does the same thing as a $100 vise from Home Depot of the same size, but the difference is that this thing does it excellently. And your chances are you're going to have a longer life on this unit than the other ones. So that's my opinion about it. I like it. I haven't really had a chance to put it to the true test. I mean, the true test is the test of time, right? But that's that. Let's show what those loops look like. So there you go. They're not the same, but they're custom and they're done right now. Of course, the real test is, can you whack them with a hammer? Let's try whacking them with a hammer. That one won't come off. That one won't come off. I think we're good. Easy Eddies. Alright YouTube, so that's pretty much that. And a little taste of the world of the welding world here whenever I have a breakdown or something comes apart. And of course now I gotta really test drive that chipper around on that and see if it holds. Them welds could break off in a jiffy, so I think I'll put a little spray paint and that'll help me see the breaks easier if the welds come apart. So as much as I enjoy, a little welding now and then, it just seems like it always has to be done at times when I should be doing something else instead, you know. If I could just be doing welding every day, I'd probably enjoy it for about 3 years. But the way I do my welding right now is I do it just enough to solve the problem and nothing more. And I think that creates a sort of resentment against the trade. You know, I have people come to my house and want me to weld because the guy that used to live here was a welder. And it's kind of funny because I'm like, yeah, I have a welder. I can, you get a stick out and shoot weld for you if you want. But the guy that was here, everybody says, oh yeah, that guy really knew how to weld. Man, he was good. He fixed my machine and it's still working, still perfect right now. And so I can't compete against that reputation-wise, and that always burns me up a little bit because I wish I could just be an awesome welder that everybody would talk about too. But in the end, what really matters is that I still have a business. I'm still able to do my work. If I didn't have a welder and know how to do the basic stuff and have a grinder around here, I'd basically be crippled. I would have to wait for somebody to rescue me. I mean, that's great if someone has enough money and resources to have very nice things where you don't really need to get it worked on much, or structural especially is mostly done on older stuff. But as long as I keep struggling by with an old truck and an old chipper, and it really never ends, because then now my Dodge, I'm probably going to convert that to a flatbed, and that's a welding project, unless I buy the flatbed, which is, again, kind of like the winch bumper I built, and I'll give you a link to that in the video here, right here. So basically, you have the choice of either spending a lot of money on a manufactured product or spending a lot less money and some time building a product that's just as good most of the time. And I get away with doing what I do because what it looks like matters a lot less to me than what it can do. And in the end, this is about making money. This is not about looking good. You can look sweet. I mean, to me, when I look at this hitch, I think this hitch actually looks kind of good. I think it looks a lot like a Mad Max. You know, it's tough, it's wild, it's kind of haphazard. It's like somebody put it together and they're gonna make it work no matter what. And it's got lots of weld and it's got lots of steel, and that's fine. I'll overbuild anything just to have it where I can use it. And if I have to rebuild this thing tomorrow, I didn't spend a penny on this project. This was free. I took scrap that I had around the property and worked it. I mean, oh, that's not true. It was $12 for that little receiver, 6-inch receiver. I got to get over and work on my chipper a little bit now. It's kind of in the evening right now, so I think I might split a little wood. That pile's just getting bigger and bigger. So it's got to get worked. Someone's got to do it. So it's going to be me, as long as I can't find a guy who can split more than a face cord in 4 hours. Man, it's unbelievable how hard it is to find a worker.
my butterfly.
Yeah, little butterfly. Daddy's getting tired. I think it's time to call it. I'm having so much trouble keeping up with this pile. See, back when I was unloading by hand, I threw all the pieces into a nice tidy area. I always backed up right to it and threw all the pieces as high as I could. And I'd have this big mound. But now, because I got so much wood coming in a dump trailer, it just lays out all over the ground here and fills up my area. This is all covering ground that I wish was covered by split wood or just not covered by this at all. All that, like that over there, is what my unsplit wood would look like. But battery's dying, so I'll talk to you guys later. Best of luck out there, all right? Take care.